Dragon Ball Z has been cursed by horrific home releases for the longest time. It is 2019, and that doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. A little while ago, we did get a glimmer of hope with Funimation and Toei joining up and announcing a new Blu-ray release for the 30th anniversary of the series. This was a big deal because for the first time since 2009, they were offering a complete release of the series in its original aspect ratio. And I say complete because although the level sets in 2011 were also 4:3, they were cancelled after only a few sets, of course. Today, we now have the first trailer for these new 30th anniversary Blu-rays, and boy do they look fucking terrible. This is a really hard subject to talk about for a number of reasons. The first is that YouTube compresses videos to death, and it's incredibly hard to put together a comparison that's actually representative. It also doesn't account for what viewing size someone's watching the video on. Someone on a small screen is not going to be able to see the intricacies of each remaster. The second is that not everyone necessarily knows what those intricacies are. What makes for a good remaster? What am I looking for? And thirdly, not everyone knows or cares what Dragon Ball Z is supposed to look like. They don't know what the background textures are supposed to be, what all the colors, the characters should be, and even why full screen versus widescreen actually matters. So I want to take the time to talk about that stuff. I want everyone to be on the same page here so everyone understands, one, why this matters, and two, why it's so frustrating. So let's kick off with aspect ratio. There are only two that really matter in the case of this video, 16:9 and 4:3. 16:9 is widescreen, it's what the screen you're watching this video on probably is, it's what this video was created in, it's the standard modern day ratio for TV. Right now, your living room probably has a 16:9 TV in it, almost definitely. On the flip side, 4:3 is the full frame square aspect ratio. It was the standard for TVs and TV shows back in the day, up until about the mid-2000s or so. Dragon Ball Z is of course a series from 1989. It was storyboarded and animated with the intention of a 4:3 frame. While the movies were boarded with both widescreen and full screen in mind due to theatrical showings, the TV series is strictly 4:3. If you deviate from that, you're losing a good chunk of the image that was intended to be seen. This was the big issue with Funimation's releases like the Orange Bricks and the Season Set Blu-rays because they were cropped. You were losing huge amounts from the top and bottom, only to gain a tiny bit on the sides that was never intended to be seen in the first place. It only exists because the animation cells are slightly bigger than the intended framing, just to give a little bit of leeway for the photography department. So on the positive side, these new sets are 4:3, and that's been their big selling point this time around because one, they've been holding this hostage for about 1,000 years, and two, they've released the series so many times at this point that this is about the only thing they can say is new. Unfortunately, for some reason, even though these are 4:3, they're still tightly cropped, missing parts of the image that were visible in their previous full screen releases. I don't know why, it's a mystery. Funimation does things and they don't make sense. Who knew? Let's talk about grain. Grain is a scary word for people not massively into video because grain equals not clean and not clean equals bad, and actually that's just not the case at all. Every cartoon you watched back in the day was shot on film, and even now a large majority of films are still shot on actual film stock. Film comes with grain, and grain is an inherent part of film and therefore the image. Different film stocks have different levels of grain. It's something directors think about a lot because it goes a long way in dictating the look of your series. While there are back and forth debates about whether grain in animation is actually an artistic choice or just a byproduct of having to shoot on the film, one thing that remains objectively true is that grain holds details and is what makes up the image. Even now, when shooting digitally, you'll still get some digital noise because that's just how video works. To remove grain, you can use digital noise reduction, or DNR. It's basically an algorithm that blurs away the grain, approximating color and detail information, and really everything that's a part of that original grain. It's very hit and miss when it comes to its application though, and with live action footage in particular, you'll generally find people end up looking like weird wax figures. It's not a good look. With animation, you can actually remove the grain, and the results can often look okay. For example, Dragon Ball Kai's remaster, it's not bad, some minor texture is smoothed away from the backgrounds, but the only real negative is that the image is left looking a little bit blurry. On the flip side, you can do it terribly, and that's Funimation's Blu-rays, both with this set and the last one. In fact, their approach is more or less identical. If you've seen the season sets, then you've more or less seen what this set is being advertised as. They've wiped away the grain with a pretty terrible noise reduction solution that has left behind this horrible, horrible smeary look where the lines look like they're drawn with watercolor paint. They're very aware they fucked up the clarity because they've then gone and applied a sharpening filter to the image, which hasn't actually done anything beyond flattening the frame into the most unappealing detailless blob. Somehow this is so bad that the line clarity on a DVD is better than the Blu-ray. I would rather watch my Dragon boxes originally produced in 2003 than these sets. That's how bad this is. Lastly, the color, the contrast, the dark detail. Dragon Ball Z's color design is not this super saturated, contrasty, punchy crap that Funimation and YouTube fan remasters would have you believe. It's pretty subdued on the whole. It's not running around screaming with blisteringly red geese or crazy royal blue skies. It's actually pretty restrained, and you can see that in its purest form on the actual animation cells. When Funimation do what they do and jack up the colours and contrast, they obliterate the dark detail in shadowy areas and blow out the skin tones into pasty white ghouls. They destroy any sort of nuance the colour design had by turning everything into what might as well be primary colours. All of these points combined is why this release is so frustrating. Sure, it's 4:3, but that doesn't mean anything if everything within that 4:3 frame is destroyed. It's especially frustrating because they're talking about this as a once-in-a-lifetime release. They want a minimum of 3,000 people to pay $350 to even make this set, and then they're limiting it to 6,000 copies. They're portraying it as this one-off special superfan ultimate collector release, but the contents are entirely deaf to what people have been saying about their video treatment of the series for over a decade. They have missed the point so hard that it blows my mind they have the nerve to even parade this around like the Holy Grail. Toei made some bizarre missteps with their recent movie releases, but the problems there are minuscule compared to what we're seeing here. It hurts more just knowing that Bardock remaster that broadcast on TV from them only a few months back looked fantastic. As a result, I cannot even begin to understand what the thought process is here. The only thing that crosses my mind is that what we have on video today is not representative of what they're trying to sell. If that's the case, then thank the gods. But if that's true, then that thought process just makes even less sense to me, for two reasons that are pretty closely linked. The first is that this is being aimed at a hardcore audience, and by using footage of something we all, as hardcore audiences, strongly hate, they are doing nothing but creating bad press. We get mad, we tweet about it, and suddenly fans who weren't even in the know about this stuff are suddenly aware that this is a release to avoid. The second is that this is a crowd-funded project. They want our money to even make this a thing. It doesn't make sense to me to avoid creating a clip as a proof of concept to your potential audience. That's not expensive, 20 to 30 seconds of high-quality remastered footage that represents what the product is going to be will have that minimum goal met within hours. The trade-off there, as far as cost goes, in my mind, is more than enough. As it stands, we have this weird trailer that insults hardcore fans, that casual fans don't give a fuck about, and only really appeals to this weird small section in the middle who either doesn't understand what they're buying, doesn't know enough about video to really care, or just wants to collect for the sake of collecting. It's ridiculous, and this is the third time they've done this in the space of 10 years. I urge everyone to not support this release until they've come out and they've told us exactly what this remaster entails. Tweet at Funimation, tell them this is not acceptable. They've either missed the point, or they've failed with their own marketing. If this is being touted as a once-in-a-lifetime release, we need to make sure they do it right. Thank you so much for listening. If I sounded angry and over the top, it's because I am. I've been in this fandom long enough to be experiencing like crazy mega triple deja vu with all of this nonsense, and honestly I'm so sick and tired of it. It's so frustrating to have friends be like, hey AJ, what's the best way to watch Dragon Ball Z? And I can't point to like a single release without having to explain 20 fucking things because nobody will release the show right. I'm gonna go lie down. I've missed you guys. I will come up with some content soon. I've been having some issues with life and mental health and family and all that craziness, but I will be back soon, I promise. Thank you so much for listening. Please tweet at Funimation, and I will see you next time.